What happens when people face crazy situations that create pressure in their relationships? Today, we're going to explore some real-life stories that show how toxic behavior can test love and trust. We'll share a story about a couple whose life changes after coming into a lot of money, a man who feels overwhelmed by his fiancée's family, always asking him for financial help, a home vacation that goes wrong, and a big misunderstanding that nearly destroys a family. Each of these stories will help us understand the tough situations that can arise in relationships and highlight how toxic traits, especially in women, can impact everyone involved. So, sit tight as we listen and learn from these eye-opening stories, and don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments. Our first story focuses on a man whose new wealth tests his girlfriend's drive. They both aimed for success and independence. She supported him during his MBA, and he was set to back her nursing career. But when his startup made big money, her ambitions seemed to disappear along with her job at a jewelry store. Now, he's stuck deciding if he can be with someone who chooses shopping over her career goals. Can their love last when their dreams no longer match? Story 1.
7 years ago, I met my girlfriend Kylie, that's not really her name, at community college. We hit it off and became close friends, starting to date 2 years later. At that time, Kylie was passionate about becoming a nurse, a career choice I fully supported. As our relationship grew, I transferred to a 4-year university to earn my MBA, and throughout my studies, Kylie was a significant emotional support to me, for which I'm deeply grateful. However, Kylie faced financial challenges along the way. Due to her spending habits, her parents decided to cut her off financially. This setback forced her to take a year off from school to work and manage her bills. Meanwhile, I invested all my savings, time, and energy into a startup in the automotive industry with my best friend. Our hard work paid off earlier this year when our company was bought out, resulting in a life-changing amount of money for both of us. We were retained as consultants, which came with high salaries. Throughout this time, Kylie continued working at a jewelry store, but after the buyout, she decided to quit, giving her 2-week notice. I offered to support her financially so she could return to school and pursue her nursing degree. We even moved into a new condo close to her school to make things easier for her. Initially, Kylie was excited about returning to her studies. However, during a recent conversation, she expressed doubts about resuming her education and mentioned the possibility of becoming a stay-at-home wife instead, despite us not being married yet. This sudden change troubled me because her ambition was one of the traits that attracted me to her initially. Moreover, her spending has increased, and she's started looking at new cars, which makes me wonder if I'm overreacting or if something is genuinely amiss. Adding to my concerns is some background information about her family. Kylie grew up in a household where her mother was a stay-at-home mom, and her father was very well off. This environment might be influencing her current perspective, as she doesn't see anything wrong with her decision to potentially give up her career. However, when we first got together, Kylie was adamant about wanting to forge a path different from her mother's. She wanted to be independent and build a career. Although I would support her choice to be a stay-at-home mom if we have children after marrying, that scenario is still in the distant future. Despite these issues, I still love Kylie and hope we can work things out. But I'm concerned about this new side of her that is emerging, one that seems content with a lifestyle funded by my recent financial success without the independence and drive she once valued so highly. My girlfriend has given up on her career after I became a millionaire. How do I tell her this won't work out?
It's really tough when money changes things between people who love each other. At first, you two were in it together, pushing each other to chase big dreams. It's sad to see her losing that spark. Maybe she's feeling insecure or unsure about her own path, especially with all the new money in the picture. It might help to have a heart-to-heart about what you both want for the future. Sometimes just talking it out openly can remind you why you fell for each other in the first place, and maybe help her find her way back to those dreams she used to be so passionate about. What do you think? Should money ever change our dreams or the way we see the people we love? Next, Let's meet a man buried in his fiancée's family's money problems. From sudden hospital bills to risky business plans, his life turns into an endless flow of money, replacing true partnership with just paying bills. Forced toward a marriage under pressure, he faces a tough choice: keep funding their life or save his own future from a relationship that's more about money than affection. How much should one person pay for love? Story 2.
I'm 26 and earn a high salary, putting me in a different financial bracket than my 24-year-old fiancé. We've been together for 3 years and engaged for a few months. Recently, the constant financial demands from her family have started to test my limits. It began a few days ago when her cousin had a medical emergency requiring a substantial amount of money for hospital bills. Despite the urgency, I had to explain to my fiancé that I couldn't pay it. She reacted by calling me selfish, claiming that if I truly loved her, I would help her family. Her mother even sent me a text criticizing me for not stepping up. But the financial requests didn't stop there. Shortly after, her uncle, whom I've never met, asked me for a loan to fund a business idea. He and my fiancé made it seem urgent, expecting me to agree as if it were no big deal. When I refused, my fiancé accused me of not caring about her family's survival. This has become a pattern: paying for vacations, covering hospital bills, or funding business ventures. I feel more like a walking ATM than a partner. My fiancé, coming from a lower income background, seems to expect that I should cover all these expenses simply because I make more money. After this latest request from her uncle, I'm starting to wonder if things are getting out of hand. I decided I couldn't go through with the wedding, explaining to her that the constant financial stress and her family's lack of boundaries made it impossible for me to see a healthy future together. Her initial reaction was anger and tears. When her family found out about the broken engagement, they began harassing me with messages, accusing me of abandoning her and claiming I needed to be responsible for her because we had been intimate and she had supported me in many ways. Their harassment intensified when I mentioned that I was so stressed I was considering a vasectomy, as I couldn't imagine bringing children into such a toxic environment. They demanded that I either proceed with the wedding or compensate them financially. Thankfully, my parents have been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. They've stood by my decision to end the engagement and have offered to help me handle the harassment legally if necessary. I've saved all the messages and threats as evidence. I also told my fiancée she needed to move out of my place. She is now refusing to leave unless I provide her with 6 months to a year of living expenses up front. It appears she's trying to take advantage of me one last time before the relationship ends officially. This has been one of the most draining experiences of my life, but I am determined to move forward and protect myself from further manipulation and stress.
Learning about this man's concerns really highlights how complex and draining relationships can become when money overshadows love. It's tough to see someone feel more like a bank than a partner, especially with the emotional blackmail from his fiancé's family. It's clear that setting boundaries early in relationships about money matters is crucial. He made a brave decision to prioritize his well-being over a financially toxic relationship, even though it was an incredibly hard choice. It's sad that his attempt to protect his future is met with so much hostility and manipulation. It makes you wonder, doesn't everyone deserve to be loved for who they are rather than what they can provide? Do you think it's ever justifiable to end a relationship because of financial pressures from a partner's family? Now, imagine planning a week alone, only to have it ruined by endless chores and interruptions. Our next story is about a man whose rare chance to relax at home becomes a fight for personal space. Every time he tries to unwind, his wife interrupts with more tasks. His break turns into a battle. How much can one man take before his quiet week off becomes a desperate plea for peace? Story 3.
I work a demanding job that allows me very little time off. Typically, I get maybe 2 hours a day to myself after handling household chores like cooking dinner and doing the dishes. Unfortunately, my wife expects me to spend all of that limited downtime with her, which means I hardly ever get to watch my shows, play video games, or read my books. I've repeatedly expressed my need for relaxation and personal time, but she agrees only in theory. Almost immediately, she either assigns me more tasks or insists on spending time together doing activities she prefers. Recognizing my growing stress 2 months ago, I requested a week off between Christmas and New Year's, a typically slow period at work. My boss agreed and made arrangements for my duties to be covered during emergencies. I planned this week as my me time to unwind, catch up on hobbies, and particularly to organize my office, a task that has been a source of stress. My wife initially seemed supportive and pleased that I would finally get some self-care time. However, her actions soon contradicted her words. This past weekend, she informed me that she had scheduled chimney cleaners for Wednesday because I would be home. She also wrote down a list of errands for me: going to Home Depot, cleaning up yard debris, picking up groceries for the week, and sorting through boxes in the basement. I politely but firmly told her that I would not be undertaking any of these tasks during my vacation, as I intended to focus on self-care and my personal projects. She dismissively suggested I simply handle whatever tasks I had time for. The interruptions began in earnest when she decided to work from home on Tuesday. This meant I couldn't organize my office as planned because we share the space. When I attempted to play a video game, she immediately complained about the noise, claiming it was too loud and sounded unprofessional during her calls. When I switched to reading on the couch, she soon joined me in the living room, turning on a loud TV show, The Kardashians, claiming she could mute it during calls if needed. Her interruptions were relentless. Every few minutes, she bombarded me with questions about my book, what I wanted for lunch, dinner plans, or if I wanted to watch something together on TV. Eventually, overwhelmed by the constant disruption, I gave up on reading. The pattern continued the next day. She worked from home again, using our shared spaces and further encroaching on my planned activities. I ended up in our bedroom, attempting to read while the chimney cleaners worked, but even there, she followed me, talking loudly on business calls, and later snoring loudly after settling down beside me with her laptop. Frustrated and unable to focus, I relocated to the living room to watch a show, only to be interrupted repeatedly by her comments and questions. After rewinding the same part multiple times due to her distractions, I turned the TV off. As she announced her plan to work from home for the rest of the week, I finally expressed how her actions were undermining my mental health and ruining the restorative break I desperately needed. While she claimed to understand and support my need for alone time, her continuous presence and interruptions suggested otherwise. I fear I am close to losing my patience, and I am unsure how to make her truly understand the importance of this time for my well-being without escalating the situation. My wife's constant interruptions and disregard for my stated needs for personal space and relaxation during my scheduled time off are pushing me towards a breakdown, and I'm struggling to communicate the seriousness of this issue effectively. How should I deal with this?
It's incredibly frustrating to hear about someone's much-needed downtime being constantly interrupted, isn't it? When someone clearly communicates their need for space, especially in a demanding work life, it's crucial for their well-being to be respected. Yet, in this story, despite the clear boundaries set for a week off, the constant interruptions seem almost inescapable. It makes you wonder about the dynamics in their household and how often we all might overlook the importance of personal space in our relationships. How do you think someone should handle such a situation without escalating it? And what rules could couples set to respect each other's personal time? Finally, a shocking tale of false accusations that turns a father's life upside down. A simple act of caring for his daughter leads to police and false charges. With his marriage ruined and his rights as a father in danger, he's faced with a huge decision: fight for his daughter or give in to pressure to patch things up for the sake of a false peace. Story 4.
My wife and I have been married for 3 years. We've known each other since we were kids and know everything about each other's families. 2 months ago, something happened that changed everything between us. One day, I came home and found my wife asleep on the couch with our 6-month-old daughter next to her. I noticed my daughter needed a diaper change. My wife usually doesn't sleep during the day unless she's really tired, so I didn't wake her up. I took our daughter to her room to change her diaper. Just a couple of minutes later, my wife came into the room and suddenly started yelling and hitting me. She accused me of doing something terrible to our daughter. I was so shocked that all I could do was protect my daughter. I had no idea why my wife was saying these things. Earlier that morning, everything was fine. She ran out of the room, and soon after the police came and handcuffed me because of what my wife had told them. They took me to jail and I was speechless and couldn't believe what was happening. The next day, the police checked the camera footage in our daughter's room and saw that I was only changing her diaper. There was no evidence of what my wife had accused me of, so they let me go. I felt so betrayed by my wife's false accusations that I decided I wanted a divorce. I also want full custody of our daughter. The police footage showed that I did nothing wrong, and it even showed how I tried to protect our daughter when my wife was hitting me. After this happened, my family, her family, and our friends started pressuring me to talk to her and try counseling. But I can't forget what she did. I've told her I don't want to do counseling together. She keeps sending me messages saying sorry, but she hasn't explained why she accused me in the first place. Now, everyone seems to be on her side, and it's really hard for me. My lawyer told me that because of the video and how I protected our daughter, I'll probably get to be the main parent for our daughter. I'm feeling really tired and upset by everything that's happened. I don't understand why people aren't seeing my side of the story. What should I do now?
Hearing about such a distressing situation really puts into perspective the devastating impact false accusations can have on someone's life. This father's situation is a heavy reminder of how quickly circumstances can spiral out of control, even between people who have known each other for years. It's heartbreaking to think that his intentions to care for his daughter led to such a drastic misunderstanding, raising serious questions about trust and communication in relationships. Being pressured by both families and friends to reconcile despite such a serious breach of trust must feel incredibly isolating. It's understandable why he'd feel unsupported and skeptical about counselling when the trust he had in his wife has been so profoundly shaken. What do you think is the best path forward for someone in his situation? Should he consider reconciliation for the sake of his daughter, or is moving forward with the divorce and seeking custody the healthier option? As we close today's episode, we've seen how money, trust, and needing your own space can really shake up relationships. These stories show us that when expectations don't meet reality, things can get pretty messy. It makes you think about how far love can be stretched before it breaks. What lessons are you taking from these stories? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this episode got you thinking, we have more deep dives into the rough side of relationships, so stay tuned.